You can go to the podium. We are in our last session. Colleagues, we beg for your attention. Some of you haven't heard of this animal called SLCP. So Fred is going to help us take us through. That is taking up. Don't forget to, those group members, don't forget the emails of yesterday. Please share whatever you have concluded on to those 2 emails. Okay?
So as is coming up with the slides, it is maybe semantics or otherwise, but when look at the UN, the UNEP various initiatives, one of them is an organization called Climate and Clean Air Coalition that was founded in 2012 by UNEP, and it is an intergovernmental organization that deals with strictly with what we call the short-lived climate pollutants. Okay, and it has got members of over 190 members, including both state and non-state actors. Uganda is one of the members. I think we joined them in 2022. And their responsibility, their sole responsibility is to manage air quality through the reduction of emissions from the short-lived climate pollutants. In the era of NDC 3, they are now called the super pollutants, or we call them the non-CO2 gases. And countries that are aligned to CCAC, I mean the Climate and the Clean Air Coalition, have made attempts to integrate and mainstream these gases into their NDC 3.0, or even the previous ones. And of course, government of Uganda has already made a lot of efforts to ensure that these gases are part of our climate action plan. And so in NDC of 2022, the NDC 2022, we try to include these short-lived climate pollutants into the NDC, but without ambitions. Okay, they lack specific ambitions compared to the greenhouse gases. And what are these? Next slide, please. So when you look at air pollution and climate change are closely linked through shared emission sources. Now, when you look at those Venn diagrams, on the extreme left, on the left rather, we have got what we call the air pollutants. And in the intersections, you see ozone and black carbon are part of air pollutants. When you go to right, you look at our IPCC greenhouse gases. And in the intersections, you find ozone, methane, and hydrofluorocarbons are part of the greenhouse gases. Okay? And then we have got the short-lived climate pollutants. What are they? Black carbon, the ozone, methane, and the hydrofluorocarbons. Now, you realize that black carbon is now a standalone. It is not, we can only cover it under air quality control or air quality management. We have the regulations on air quality, and we assume that through that, black carbon is ably managed. But since we are saying these are closely linked, because black carbon too contributes to global warming, because of their effects on lights and heat. And so managing this politically with two simultaneous actions for co-benefits would be very important. Next slide. And when you see, I think the slide is not, but I can explain. The shortly cloud pollutants they are short-lived. They don't stay as long as 100+ years like the CO2. Okay, they stay from hours to years. Like black carbon will stay for hours within the atmosphere. The ozone will stay for weeks. The hydrofluorocarbons will stay for 1 to 20 years. Methane will stay for 10 to 20 years. But their global warming effect is 45%. Well, if you look at the global warming effect compared to CO2. So what we are saying that the shortly cloud pollutants and more so the methane contributes 45% of the global warming. And that's why you see now there's a drive for methane globally, with what's called the Global Methane Pledge, the Global Methane Initiative. There are a number of global initiatives for methane compared to CO2. So you find that now, because of these effects of methane and other related gases, and therefore we cannot do without having methane in our use. But by good luck, colleagues, methane is already covered in that. But the difference is going to be how we are going to account for them without any double counting. How shall we account for that? Next slide. And so this is just what we are saying, that the statistics, the various statistics, okay? But we want to note that the black carbon emissions in 2019 are estimated to be 20,000 tons, okay? The residential sector making the greatest contribution of black carbon, that's energy sector. And then the second largest source of black carbon is industrial energy, okay? However, for the, of course, followed by the charcoal production. So those first three are the main source of black carbon. And for the hydrocarbons, we know that data is not available, but we have some information which we got through the model. This slides the information are from the LEAP model. So it was done by SEI and the ECI, funded by UNEP through CCAC. Now, in the model, you come to the next slide. Next slide. Who's there? Okay, now in the model, this is what you find. That if we single out only the short-lived climate pollutants, methane, black carbon, then we have got the nitrous oxide, and we have got the hydrochlorocarbon. Those are the 4 short-lived climate pollutants. The rest are not. You'll find that, as I said earlier on, the domestic energy sources and the industrial energy sources are the leading in the model. Next slide. And why are we interested in reducing short-lived pollutants in Uganda? One is that they are one of the fastest, most effective strategies to eliminate global to slow climate change, protect human health, and enhance food security. Number 2, black carbon in the atmosphere is for a few days, but because of its effects on absorbing light, it has a global warming potential, which is twice stronger than carbon dioxide. And therefore, we need to manage them. PM 2.5 and ozone and other pollutants, which are harmful to human health. Next. Now, this is what the model is predicting, that if we don't manage, for example, the PM 2.5 concentration in that atmosphere, that is the implication that we shall have premature deaths avoided at least 682 a year by 2035. That is 1,200 a year by 2040. If we manage these pollutants. Next. And so what are the, I don't know this slide, I didn't get the, is there a way we can work on this and the resolution, please? Then go back, I think. Yeah, thank you. So the team developed basically 4 priority areas for interventions or measures, which are already actually in the even NDC in the sectors. The first one is we're looking at 100% households have access to either clean fuels or efficient stoves by 2040. Okay. Then we look at 70% of solid waste is collected and managed in landfills with the methane capture technologies or options by 2040. And then we look at increase in livestock productivity and reduce methane emissions intensity. Now, in livestock sector, there are basically 3 or 4 measures that we take into account. Where we've got management of breeds, management of feeds, and management of manure. Okay? So those 3 factors, when they are properly managed, through feeds, we look at the livestock productivity. We are not saying that we should have very few animals, but we should have high quality animals, high quality feeds, and high quality breeds. Okay? And we should be able to manage the manure through other measures. And then number 4 is to phase out the hydrochlorocarbons through Kigali Amendment measures. Now, if these 4 measures, this 4 measures could reduce methane, black carbon, and the hydrochlorocarbons by 14, 22, 54% respectively. That's what the model predicts. So meaning we shall have at least for black carbon, methane will be 14, black carbon will be 22, and then the SOC will be 54%. Next. And now this is business as usual scenario, which will be in the next. I want to explain in the next slide. To save time, next I got next. Now this is the business scenario. Now let's leave methane because methane is already covered in the NDC. The difference will be how we are doing the targets. But in the for black carbon, that is the business as usual scenario. What's called the business scenario? Sorry, business scenario. The next one will give us now the mitigation scenario. The next slide. No, you have gone too fast, I think. Yes. Yeah, that one. So now you see, that is what will happen when we implement those 4 priority action areas. Okay. And you will see that I told you the priority areas are the charcoal production, industrial energy, and the residential energy, and of course, but energy includes even those in transport sector. Okay. Next. And now the required actions. I think the slide which you have skipped. Okay. There are the actions. One is that we need to integrate the solid clay pollutants in our NDC 3. And number 2, where possible, especially those sectors where we have got black carbon to be the biggest emitters of black carbon, needs to develop action plans for action plan for black carbons through basically domestic and industrial energy sectors. There's just a slide which I can explain from here. In the model, because I sent I think the last email to Bachika, but I think didn't come. In the model, we are saying that just excuse me, just 1 minute. Yes, yesterday Capello was saying that we cannot follow the gases in targeting. But again, we are saying that if we cannot follow the gases in our NDC target, and yet when we are communicating, maybe this one maybe will help us. In our national communication, we are supposed to account for them. So how do we account for what we don't have in terms of the target in because now we have got sector measures, okay, and targets. Now, how will I know that in agriculture, this is what we are doing to reduce methane from this to this? How will I account for that? And yet in the national communication, we're supposed to account for that in the under enhanced transparency framework and the BTR and the rest. So for me, this is a very big question. We don't have any issue. The measures I told you those 4 areas are what we already have in the NDC, across the sectors. But how are we going to account for these gases? So now this is what came up in the model that the team, the ECI did using LEAP model. That if you look at this various scenario, like energy, we are saying that the measure is efficient stoves and a clean cooking in the residential subsector. Now, they're saying by 2035, that will be the emission, okay, change compared to the baseline of 2019. So so we are saying that in all, if you look at the energy, waste, agriculture, and IPPU, take care of all these measures and all these changes in emission, in the NDC and the shortly climate measures, we shall have 14 for in 2035 for methane, 17 in 2040 for methane. Okay? And then for black carbon, we shall have 22 in 2035 and 22 in 2040. And then the same with the hydrofluorocarbons in 2035 and 2040. So this measures is accounting for all this. So this is how it is in the model, the LEAP model for solid climate pollutants. And for me, that could be an area where we could now have a discussion. How do we harmonize this when we are accounting at the end of the day? Because we are planning in the NDC as mitigation measures, but we need to account under what we call the enhanced climate enhanced transfer framework and the BTR. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Fred. I know this has been a tip of the work behind short-lived climate pollutants. For those of you who have not understood, who have understood better, you need clarity. You can open up for 2 to 3 comments or questions to Fred. But just to know, this work is among the things we are transmitting for inclusion. So by show of hands, I see everyone seems to be okay.
So now that everybody is okay, let me respond to Freddy's question. In the discussion, it is very clear that we don't want to do double counting. in the short-lived climate pollutants, they are GHG gases that are tracked under the IPCC. But also, they are the same gases that are being tracked under the short-lived climate change pollutants. And now, we say that we cannot account them under short-lived climate change pollutant because their commitment is on the side of climate change. So those gases that are under short-lived climate change pollutants, we are directly reporting to them under the IPCC categorization. So that one we maintain them there. That discussion about agreed. It is only the black carbon that we think that we can now take on, because after all, the interventions proposed for short-lived climate change pollutants, I'm very sure you've seen what you have presented, are the same interventions that are being proposed for our sectors, isn't it? Maybe for energy, maybe for forestry, isn't it? There we are covered. It means that there is a synergy in that direction. Now, the only issue is that the black carbon, which is not part of the IPCC GHG categorization, that we need to bring on board. And this is what we want to capture into that direction. Okay? That is assurance given to you, or given to ourselves, because it is not you, it is to ourselves at Uganda. Now, the issue of reporting. NDC is a strategy, isn't it? We have technical reports where we categorize the gases, the subcategories, etc., etc. And we wouldn't want to carry all that into the NDC. That's why the other day I said that we report this in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent. So now, but when it comes to reporting, this NDC here has to develop what we call the implementation plan. At implementation plan level is where we can go into the detail that once we do this intervention, they are going to help us to reduce emissions, isn't it? And the type of emission that we are reducing is coming from this category, and this is the gas that we'll be avoiding. So that one, it will help us in the aspect of reporting, not only under the national communication, which we do, but also in the enhanced reporting framework template, which is of the BTR, isn't it? So what is needed by us is actually to do a proper NDC implementation plan, isn't it? So that now we don't compact the NDC to those small final details. It will cease to be an NDC, to go back to be a technical report, isn't it? But now when we do the NDC implementation plan, we should be very clear that once we do this intervention, it is helping us to achieve this by this much towards this gas that we want to reduce, isn't it? So that one will help us in tracking the progress. After we have developed what we call the NDC tracking tool, which has never been operationalized because we're in the process of developing a new NDC. So that is actually where we'd want to do that. But that would be an exercise which go when we finalize and zero down on which intervention do you want to undertake, isn't it? The implementation plan will only be customizing the intervention and bring the final details or the final details into that direction. So maybe once this is done, we are clear with the intervention, isn't it? Now, backtracking those interventions in terms of which gas, for which sector, for which intervention, and how much are we intending to reduce, isn't it? Or how many are we intending to reduce is what actually can explicit detailed in the NDC protection plan. And this will bring in the aspect of also the costing that we're talking about, because we cannot talk about costing now, even when the interventions are still what? Are still featuring or are still being dropped. So that is the direction that we'd want to undertake in that direction. So the message I'm trying to give here is that the NDC will not bring all that final details. That means we will make it a technical report, isn't it? Yet we are saying that it's being informed by technical assessment. So it will imply that we're getting the entire technical assessment and then say this is the NDC. So this is about strategizing and coming up with a plan, but also we'll be mindful about the implementation and tracking progress. Now, which comes back to Freddie's question, how will you do that? We have the NDC implementation plan that is to be elaborated. The BTR requires us to report also on the implementation of the NDC, which has to be a must. So that means that such kind of details will help us when we are elaborating on these interventions that go into a strategic plan, which is now the NDC.
Thank you, sir. Who is assisting me?
Thank you very much. Commissioner, I wanted to, I think it is a request. Me and you, we have been implementing some of these activities. But if you don't have an action in a strategy, it is very difficult to attract funding from Ministry of Finance. Like now we have what they call a PIAP and other things. If you are not reflected in the PIAP, it is very difficult to get money to do activities. So I was thinking that if it is possible, we can put a paragraph, just a paragraph, on black carbon, specifically black carbon in the NDC. And so that now it can give us a leeway of coming up with activities in the implementation plan. That's what I'm suggesting I submit here.
Given that we are going to have a section on black carbon, but not carrying the entire short-term climate change pollutant intervention back in the NDC, because we'll be duplicating what we already have under the IPCC. So that is why we task Fred, would you want us to capture the short-lived climate change pollutants, but specifically the black carbon, which is not featuring in the above? So that is really a given. So that now we don't duplicate already what we're going to be doing under the GHG.
Energy, actually works and transport, you are the most lucky. You have already qualified inputs in the NDC. Any other question for Fred? So since there is no question for Fred, the task is simple. Because I don't want to turn the mic to you. I want Dr. Letete. Tapelo, you can hear us. Please be working to project your presentation if you haven't sent it through, because we want to really save time. Fred, the assignment is simple. Refine your information very well. Pronounce yourself on black carbon. Come up with a clear baseline. Show those interventions which are contributing to your target. And then the rest is what will be worked on to enter in the NDC. Tapelo, are you ready now?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready. Let me just do this. I am now sharing.
You made the echo. You made him a host. You made him a host.
Yes, I am now able to share. Please tell me that. Let me know when you are able to see. And good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear. Presentation mode.
Presentation mode, yes. Tell me when you want me to proceed. Should I proceed? Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Okay, so this is a very short presentation that shows how we are doing target setting. The critical part is the mitigation measures themselves. Once we tie down and we agree that we are happy with the mitigation measures ourselves or themselves, here I've just taken the example of electricity generation. I'm projecting them here, but I also want, if you allow me to go from this slide to show you that there is actually a bigger registry of all of them. Let me just do this. Just allow me 1 second. I want to stop sharing that document and share a different one, because I want you to get a good sense of what we actually have. from the modeling team. So this you'll see is an Excel sheet. You don't really need to read what is in here, but I can just talk to it. That you'll see that every PAM or a mitigation measure or an action, PAM stands for policy, policies, actions, and measures. So every mitigation policy, action, and measure is here. And you'll have seen I showed them there in the slide even the day before yesterday. But individually, they have the name, the description, and the detail
So,
here.
Dr. Tapero, Dr.
Yes.
Tapero, can you expand the Excel?
You want it to be bigger?
Because we are not seeing what you are saying. There we can see
Oh,
now.
now you can see. Okay, okay. Okay. So if you can see this now, that is good, because you'll see that it has different columns. So column B just names the different PAMs one by one. And column C talks about the type of measure. I'll just use the word measure to talk about policy, action, or measure or project. Anything that reduces mitigation, that is a mitigation project, or that reduces emissions or enhances absorption of CO2. So here it has the primary name of it, and the description or the part of it. So you see it says PAM1, which is climate smart agriculture, is part 1. Part 2 of it is better rice management. And E here has specific detail of the amount or the quantities that you have modeled, that have been modeled by the team. And on this right side, it talks about the sector. And with that detail, when that model is run, it then gives some sort of value in terms of how much it will mitigate over a particular time. Forget about that. I'll talk about that later. But once we have done this, once we have this detail and we have all agreed for all of them, so this is critical, that the work that you have been discussing now, we've been talking about now, what measures do you want to see? Which ones do you want to see more of? How many of them do we want? Are we able to do with our own resources? And all of that. All that information, once it is set and we put it here and the models are run, we end up with a whole list of mitigation measures, and we know how much each one will reduce by. I now want to move away from this to another slide. Once we have understood that, this level of detail here on E is critical, because it is the one that tells us the penetration, how far and how much each measure will go for, and how deep it will go. And each depth and each width will tell us how much it reduces by in CO2 equivalent terms. And I want to talk here a little bit to Fred, that when we talk about this 5% reduction and all of this, for instance, in temperature, in kilometers, 5% reduction in motorized demand by 2050. What we do is, this is a lump sum of all the gases. So it is all reduction in the whole mobility, and we translate it to how much then will it mean in terms of CO2 emissions, how much it will mean in terms of N2 emissions, and how much it will mean in terms of methane emissions. And then the sum thereof, we turn it into CO2 equivalent. So at the end, the monitoring is required, or the action and the targets are required at the level of what happened. Did we actually reduce in fuel economy by 22%, or by 23%, or by 25%, or by 5%, or by 6%? That's what we should be measuring. When we talk about electricity center, for instance, how many efficient stoves did we put up, and how much charcoal did you produce in terms of efficient stoves? Industrial energy use, how much reduction did we achieve? Those are the things that we should be targeting at, and we should be monitoring. Then they themselves will then give us how much methane has been reduced, how much CO2 has been reduced, how much N2O should be reduced. So the target should not be at the level of the one gas. And I still go back to you, Fred, to say, but the measurements, when we monitor, we will still have to go back to say, okay, 30% reduction in biomass, or for instance, introduction of energy efficient lighting reduced consumption by 75%. 75% reduction means so much reduction in CO2, so much reduction in N2O, so much in CH4, and all others. But the target is best set at this level. I hope that also answers your question. I now need to move away from this and then go to the presentation to finish off how then we will do the target setting. Now that we have seen that the important part is getting the information on each mitigation measure right. So once we have gotten each mitigation measure right and we know that information, what we then do is to then say, what are the implications? This is already the model, what has been modeled. So we say in the reference case, well, what was modeled was that by 2030 or 2032 or so, there will be a lot of nuclear coming in, and a lot of geothermal being that much, and some hydro here, and you see some natural gas. Let me do this so that you can see this. So that this is, we are saying here, this is the natural state, things as things were planned in any case, how much was going to be. And these are based on the different policies. I think I stated earlier that these were specifically, what policies these were specifically based on. For both modeling frameworks, the BAE scenarios is aligned to the 10-fold growth strategy, and mineral development's least cost electricity generation and transmission plan with no mitigation actions. So whenever you see this information that I'm talking about here, it is based on that policy. And now we go to the NDC or the draft NDC. We are saying the draft NDC, you see that the electricity output is envisaged to be slightly higher, but you see the mixture is now slightly different. There's a lot of biomass coming in at around 2030, 2031. There are, a lot of, you can see also nuclear is also increasing, and then a bit of geothermal coming right there on top. So we change the mix, and this is just for electricity generation. So once we do that, we know that we now compare the emissions from all of these things to that. Whatever that is will then be the sectoral target. So this is what it now means in terms of emission. It's exactly the same as this, but this is now what it means in emission case. So we take the baseline of that sector, which is in this case the electricity sector. This is where the emissions were going to be if we looked like this. But now that we have put in these interventions or these measures, now our emissions look like what you see in the orange one. So the whole idea is that once we agree on those mitigation measures and we set them and we finalize them, we will see how much in terms of emissions they should give us. That becomes the sectorial target against the baseline. Similarly, buildings and residential, as I've shown you here, the same way, this is the baseline as anticipated using the 10-point growth strategy. And this is where after the measures have been put in place, where we anticipate the emissions to be. Therefore, for that sector, or at least that subsector, because this is still energy, but it's energy buildings. This is energy electricity. This is where we envisage the targets should be. We can, in the NDC, if we want, we can present targets at this lower level of just electricity generation or buildings or so on. Or we can put them up to a higher aggregated level to say the whole energy sector, the baseline is so much and the target is this much. we can choose to do that. In the NDC 2.0, we had done a combination of the two, depending on the sectors. So for some sectors, for instance, waste sector in the 2.0, we didn't disaggregate between wastewater and solid waste. We just had a target for the whole waste sector. But if we want, we can say, well, for wastewater, this is the baseline. For solid waste, this is the target. And this, as I said, this I'm just showing you the residential and commercial measures. This is what gave rise to this orange line from the purple line on top. Because we made these reductions, and as you saw, you need the details to model it, and then that's what you get. We can do the same for all sectors, and this is also the same visual demonstration from the buildings, which is residential and commercial, to say, in the absence of mitigation measures, we envisage the emissions to look like this. So the consumption, the electricity consumption to be like this, with electricity there, with biomass there, and with charcoal. But under NDC 3.0, after we do these things, we envisage that it will get us here. And therefore, if it gets us there, this is the line. So that, colleagues, is the idea of how we are doing target setting. It is a bottom-up process that is informed by the mitigation measures. If we agree that we are going to put up so many hydropower stations, or we tend to do that, we intend to do so much in terms of transport. All of those things, we do them from bottom up, and they are then the ones that give us what the target for that sector will be. That is all from my side. Thank you very much.
You have had, is that all we can appreciate?
You needed to see all the sectors. Mehdi was actually saying I should just show 2 slides.
No, Tapero, that wasn't meant for you. It was meant for the audience in Kampala.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
We were appreciating your powerful presentation. I know, Tapero, this is work in progress. Yes. And we are really working to ensure that we distill out the mitigation potentials very well. And then we are able to categorize them between the conditional and unconditional, the same applying to adaptation. So we are going to really have a marathon in this remaining period before June. But colleagues, the floor is open. Any request for clarity, any supplement? I want to first start with the back. Assistant Commissioner, the first, take the floor.
Good afternoon. I know that in South Africa it's also afternoon now. Yes, so I'm sorry I came in late, but my colleague has been here the last 2 days. But I'm going to, my name is Caroline Aguti, and I work for the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. Now, I just want to comment on this baseline, because you're saying that in terms of our target setting, our baseline is based on the 10-fold growth strategy and the least cost generation plan. But now, when we are setting targets, you're telling us that we are going to set targets based on the mitigation options that we have put in place. If I know that the Minister of Energy emphasized that we needed to use the energy policy scenario, and it's good that NPA is here, because it's the one that really has the targets. But I know that in terms of our NDC, we are also saying that we're not going to increase ambition. My expectation was to see that maybe now we are setting the targets based on the energy policy scenario. You'll forgive my being naive, but I really wanted to see these targets go to something else, because if it is business as usual, then the other scenarios, what would it be like? And then our targets should be set according to something. It should be helping us to either to fulfill our energy policy targets or our energy transition targets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Commissioner. Who is assisting me? Namita? I have 20. Tapero, take note. The Assistant Commissioner is asking, how have you used the energy policy they shared and their scenarios? How are you integrating the targets in the energy policy apart from the 10-fold list post? And then also, just to remind ourselves, we are ambitious. We have not said anywhere that we are limiting ambition. So the target we will agree on will define the ambition. But for now, we are still as open as air. Yes, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Wilson Asimwe, Minister of Finance, Uganda. Mine is not a question, just a contribution. Maybe if it's captured, that's okay. If it's not, maybe you can consider. One, when you look through the document, I think we need to strengthen or integrate quantifiable indicators for each measure, because a number of them are flat and they don't have quantifiable indicators. Let's say something which is measurable and quantifiable. For instance, when you say that improved breeds of cattle, yeah, it's flat. If we know maybe 20% of the breeds of cattle is what we have now, and we say maybe by 2035 or 2040, it should be 30%. So that in between, when we are assessing performance, we can easily measure ourselves against the baseline and what change has been made after the baseline. That's one. Then secondly, as Carol said, we are following the 10-fold growth strategy. And we know a number of emissions, especially those related to energy, IPPU, waste, and also some agriculture, is a function of economic activity. So government interventions to multiply GDP 10-fold, it means that emissions related to these sectors, energy, IPP, and waste, will likely to increase also on average 10-fold. So if we considered this, that's okay. But if we didn't consider, we need to look into the government programs and see the projections of emissions, but make sure that the projections communicate with what government is planning to do. Then maybe something that will capture these types of emissions to link them to government programs would be like a tool which is economy-wide. I've not grasped well what the model used, but economy-wide, meaning a tool which could capture the backward and forward linkages between the sectors. And largely, the social accounting matrix would be one of the biggest data set, and also like a CGE model also would be very strong in supporting this initiative. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Asimwe, for also coming. We have been looking for you in a number of meetings, but it is a pleasure. And Tapero, please respond to Mr. Asimwe. Mr. Asimwe is one of the modelers in finance. He works with the macro department. So please make sure you ascertain how GDP growth has been integrated in Susupedo and close. If not, Why? CGE, I want to be honest, we have not used the CGE for reasons Tapero is going to tell you. I saw a hand there. Fred.
Yeah, I just want to reemphasize. First of all, I thank Tapelo for the emphasis and the detailed explanation of our targeting in terms of sectors and the gas specific targets. I think I'm ably convinced that this is the way to go. I want to get back to Madame Caroline's submission, and vis-a-vis what the submission from Minister of Finance, the issue of the tenfold development growth strategy. And take into account what the State Commissioner said, that we are going to have an actual implementation plan for the NDC. I believe that we need to, the modeling should, and I believe it has done that, taken care of the sector specific policies. Because when you look at the energy policy of 2023, and you look at the energy transition plan of 2023, for sure, those are documents that need to be part of the modeling, because they really explain the measures and interventions, and even quantifying some of the interventions, such as indicators, which are, to me, really would take care of that. But there are also other sector policies, agriculture, transport. I'm not saying that we should not use the 10th development program. It should be there, but it should be among others. Because right now we are, the colleagues, let's speak as government now. Right now, we are all flagging. I'm happy that the Minister of Finance is here. We are all flagging the 10-fold development strategy or growth strategy. We are flagging it over and above NDC. And I hope the same will be done when it comes to climate financing. Thank you.
That is Fred. Thank you for this highlight. Tapero, can you help us?
Yes, Robert.
Yes, those are the 3 comments and questions from the 3 colleagues.
Yes. Very useful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate those. Just 2 things to clarify. And because these questions are really around the same type of clarification. So we have, okay, let me start by saying, when we do the target setting or the NDC as a whole, we first have the business as usual, the BAU. The BAU. So BAU asks the question of what is envisaged to happen in the country. That includes GDP growth. How would we estimate the GDP to be growing over the next 20, 30, 40 years? So GDP growth is critical. What are those things that the country intends to have in place? That's what the 10-4 strategy tells us. You know, we hope to have 10 of this, we have to hope 10 of this. So that is an aim of what to have. But it does not really tell specifically whether it will be low carbon or high carbon. But this is the vision of the country. So we use that to then grow the emission, or to model forward the emissions, to say, okay, if that the country, Uganda, achieves its 10-4 strategy, but using business as usual. So that is the same thinking that is being used or has been used until now. Things like least cost things, most accessible, but not considering climate change at all. So that's what the baseline is saying. Without considering climate change, following the 10-4 strategy, growing the GDP, as the economy as per the GDP and the population growth as expected, where will our emissions go? That's what gives us the business as usual. Then we say, okay, that is BAU. What is the mitigation measure? What then should be put in place to achieve the same things, the same outcome, but in a lower carbon way. That's where we now go into the individual strategies and plans and actions of each ministry. That's where now the mitigation measures come in. We went to each sector, and each sector tells us, no, we are planning to do 1, 2, 3, we are planning to do this. So all those sector policies or sector plans that reduce emissions become part of the mitigation component. So, for instance, the energy policy scenario then becomes part of the mitigation part, not the business as usual. Then, as we put those, we then say, if we were to implement all of these policies, these green policies that we see everywhere, this is where our emissions will be. And I hope those two things give clarity. And I want to then go back to the economy-wide, because there was the question around, well, will you then do economy-wide? Absolutely. All of these things, we feed them up into economy-wide. We model them individually, we model the interactions, but the whole point at the end of the day is economy-wide. And I want to show maybe 1 or 2 slides from what I showed last week, yesterday or the day before. To then say at the end, the targets, the actual targets that we are going to set to the international world is not sectoral targets. Sectoral targets are there to help us internally to do the work and to see who is pulling their own weight, who is actually getting us there. But the global or the national target will be this economy-wide. And the speaker there mentioned the fact that they need economy-wide. So we actually use the term economy-wide to say that is a country overall measure looking at all the sectors, even the interactions, unconditional and conditional. Then all other things that we'll do here under the sectoral, these ones will be in the NDC. But this is now for us to then say, okay, the electricity generation, which policies did you want to say you're going to put in place here to get us to low carbon? So I think that maybe that clarity is useful. Just to summarize very quickly that the 10-point growth strategy is the end point. These scenarios, baseline and the mitigation scenarios, is the how to get there. This is how to get there without considering climate change. This is how to get there being climate conscious, using the different policies and strategies that government and private sector are planning to implement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tapero. You have not responded to the question of framing information.
Indicators. Yes, the indicators. Yeah, no, now I see. No, indicators, I think that's a very important comment, and it is well noted. We have not really done, in the NDCs, we have really not done that very well in the past. So I'm actually even thinking maybe we can have a section, a standalone section that is M&E, where we don't necessarily intend to develop an M&E framework or system, but focus on the indicators to say, when we now monitoring, when we're doing stock take for NDC 3.0, whoever is doing that stock take, follow or monitor these indicators. Megawatt of solar installed, megawatt of solar consumed, amount of charcoal produced, amount of charcoal reduced, and so on. So that is an awesome comment, and I appreciate it. Not that others are not as good, and I think they are quite good. And I mean, I take the point of Assistant Commissioner Caroline to make sure that energy policy scenario is integrated in there. And what I was really saying is that it is part and parcel of that work. Thank you.
Okay, as the colleagues prepare to share what they have discussed in the groups, Tapero, take note of this. The 10-fold growth strategy runs up 2040. You will have to interpolate targets for 2035. That's why the issue of expounding on your quantifiable indicators and assumptions is critical. Then also, you know, the targets for NDP4 run up to 2030. Hotel, we are in real NDC 3. Power is back. We have the Assistant Commissioner here, Energy. Feel free to ask her during lunch why power is oscillating. Colleagues in the groups, please, have you shared your information to the email? And I hope those who are going to present, like we said, we want to make it brief. It's already past 1, it's coming to 2. Tapero, you can hear me?
Loud and clear. Yes, I just lost you there for 2 minutes when the power went off, but I can hear you loud and clear now.
How did you notice it was power off in Kampala?
Your screen went off and then you said it, you mentioned it yourself.
Okay. So Tapero, please don't drop off. We are going to share what we have observed so far in the mitigation component. I want to ask colleagues, which category is ready? IPPU or West? Okay, Afolu? Okay, as colleagues are sending through, we really want to save time, but the representative from Energy has something to say. Yes.
I am sorry that I'm making these comments when I even haven't looked at the document. But for us, as the energy sector, some of our targets should also be based on our National Energy Compact, in line with the Mission 300. So that one gives us more concrete targets that we really want to achieve as a sector. And I think we had shared this with the team, but we shall confirm with Mr. Tapero if they got that and how that has been integrated.
Okay. Tapero, please be ready for more informals. Can you project, please?
Okay, no, thanks, Caroline. I'm taking note of that and I'll discuss that with my modeling team to see the extent to which that was integrated. But thank you very much for that comment.
Okay. Group members, who is ready to share his or her quick highlight? In 1 to 2 minutes. You have a mic on your desk? Did you take the floor then? Dr. Letete, please. We are now sharing quick highlights.
Thank you. Thank you, the facilitator. For us from Afolu, that is agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. For For agriculture, we divided into two teams to handle the livestock, then also the crops. In our submission for the mitigation targets and the likes, we handled mitigation potentials for and indicators for each section. What we didn't include was the target, the baseline. Tapela and the team, they have more work to to do to see that we get the correct baseline values, then the targets, and for 2030 and for 2035. Then the same was done for forestry, and the same was done for other land uses, which captured the wetlands. So we didn't want to go into the details of the mitigation potentials we proposed and the indicators. Those will be shared in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we clap for our follow team? You have really done justice. Actually, the team from Zutali, the comment of baselines and targets for 2030 and 35 is critical. Please take note.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We are within the same group and we just needed to add some thing which was missed out for the consultant take note. We found out that specifically the fisheries component was completely missing, and yet we know that there are emissions that come from there through the fishing operations. People are using the kerosene lamps to do the small pelagic fishing, but also the fishing using the outboard engines. Those are sources of emissions, but we have attempted to add a section which they can consider, but also found out that there is need to include the indicators and the targets for 2030 and 2035, as it is the case for the rest of the components, and also to avoid ambiguous statements which are not easily understood. For example, we found out among the livelihood as one of the interventions, the enhanced livelihood mitigation, and the statements which are there are really needed to break down, and we provided comments on how these ones can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for raising this about fisheries, but we need to clarify. The emissions coming from the fisheries operation are already accounted for from their source. That's energy. Okay? Anyway, we are going to have a chart, but we account for those emissions operating from some operations from their sources. For example, now emissions which are used in the boats are already being accounted for under the accounting of emissions in the energy sector. I just wanted to say that some of the things Tapero can highlight, but be rest assured, they already ascertained. Which group?
Maybe you have not really focused on the provision of alternatives to the kerosene lanterns for fishing. Maybe we focus on energy for value addition or something. But that is again something we need to discuss as the energy sector, if there is going to be maybe small solar panels that can facilitate the fishing industry. But we take note that that is accounted for under the energy sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. And please share the energy balance, the latest. Yes, Assistant Commissioner.
Thank you very much. The waste sector, is going to be presented by our national planner because we looked at it holistically, focusing on all the sectors that contribute to waste, and that was our major observation in this table. There was no geographical context for emissions generated from the waste sector, solid waste, and that is what we found very glaring, missing compared to how it was presented in NDC 2. In NDC 3, it did not provide a context for where this waste is often generated. So that is our major observation and also guided us in the proposals that we have made. So I'll allow for Aaron to present in detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Regarding waste, we had a number of general issues to raise and also detailed ones, but for the purposes of this, like commissioners informed, we're going to focus on the general ones. First, we suggest that we have some coherence in the presentation of this information in the table. We were looking at adaptation yesterday, and the tables were a bit more elaborate, which is not the case here. So we are seeing we have a target of reducing waste, improving solid waste collection to 90% in 2050, and then some rows have up to 2030. So it suggests that we have maybe 2 more columns, one which has a target for 2030, and then one for 2035, and then maybe to capture the LTS, one for 2050. Just for comparability and coherence. And then the other issue which we noted generally across the text is that the transition from NDC to NDC 3 was not really coming out so well for this sector. There are a number of interventions which were there in the NDC 2, but we haven't really performed that much as of now. And they had been lost, so we were able to embed some of them in these interventions. And also, still on the structure of the table, the description is it describes the measures, it describes the targets, and some of it has indicators and examples, which is a little bit jumbled up. We think we can borrow some conceptualization from the tables in adaptation. There are 3 measures under waste. There is one on expansion of sewer and wastewater treatment, and then there is one on solid waste management, and another still on solid waste management. And we thought that those are sufficient. We've just made some improvements in terms of framing, making them more efficient, introducing issues of circularity to manage waste and all that. And then lastly, the issue of non-GHG waste, non-GHG measures, which Commissioner Semambo elaborated on. There were a number of colleagues on the table were saying that there are some streams of waste which are missing out, like e-waste, but there were questions on whether e-waste impacts GHG emissions or stuff like that. It has issues of pollution and others. So they were suggesting that we get some measures on how to manage e-waste as well, and the non-GHG measures in this section. That's what pretty much is from our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Group 3?
Yes, energy and transport.
Okay, I thought we give justice to this one.
The transport, yeah.
Is the group done? Isn't there any supplement? That's all?
We did, Chair, we did not handle the energy. We handled only the transport part because the energy experts were not in the room.
Take the floor.
Thank you. So, under transport energy used, generally, like the West people have said, we saw the table where they have put the mitigation measure, the scenario, and the description. So the suggestion was like, we really have to have another column for where the baseline should be and provide the targets. If we could have that, and also we see some missing information on somewhere where they got the sources of this information. If we could also have the column for where the sources can be indicated.
Can we be clear, James?
Yes.
Are you looking for assumptions with the quantifiable information as the missing information?
What, for example, what they are provided, number one, vehicle fuel efficiency. They are saying they are going to improve the fuel economy by 20%. So from which baseline? That is what the information we want. Okay. From which baseline? And then also we provide, the targets are here in the description, but we want the baseline from where? We introduced one mitigation measure, that is fuel blending. It was missing. The team feel that it was necessary for it to be in, but the targets and the indicators can be got from the other document from Ministry of Energy. For the electric bus deployment, in NDC 2, it was around 200. That was the target to be deployed in Greater Kampala metropolitan area by 2030. But the team said in their strategic planning, going to 2030, they hope it can be increased to 200, to 300 electric buses from the 200. That is the target they are providing for NDC 3.0. The non-motorized transport infrastructure, NDC 2.0 mentioned 100 kilometer to be as the target, but the team said they are increasing it to 200 kilometers by 2030. There was a mitigation measures on transit-oriented development. The team said they need a clarity on whether this is a policy related. For example, if it is an enabler for emission reduction, or it's a cell of a GHG target. And if it is a GHG target, what activity data do we need for it to be modeled? For the freight efficiency improvement, they said their document are providing a shift from the road cargo to the rails. So in this framing of the mitigation measures, it should be a shift from the road cargo to rail. And therefore, they will look for the baseline and determine the targets, because the baseline is not even here in what has been provided. For the rehabilitation of the rail infrastructure, the freight gauge railway, they said they are going to maintain the same target, but it will go up to 2030. It was supposed to go up to 2026 in NDC 2.0, but they are increasing it to 2030. Then the passenger rail expansion, they said the target of 61 kilometers is too much, so they are reducing it to 50. That is in brief what we had for the transport sector.
Transport, some quick things for you. Tapero is in Joburg. He doesn't have this data. How do we help Tapero get this baseline? I was looking at the e-mobility strategy. Government has announced it is rolling out 1,500 buses by 2030. The strategy talks about 15,000 buses by 2040. So how can we help now our consultants to pitch up these gaps than trying to push him to dig deeper? Because now time is our challenge. So I would encourage the transport team working with the focal points in the Ministry of Works to really distill for us this information, because you have it at fingertips. Give us the baseline, give us these different targets, which are in your policy documents, and then Tapero does the math of intra and extrapolating, such that we work within these targets government has already pronounced itself. Okay? So can I take it as a yes from transport?
No, it is not a yes, but because do they have a Ugandan consultant here? If they have one, let us have an interaction in the office. Let that person come up with a checklist of what they want. But I remember we provided almost every document which has all these requirements. So if we don't have someone here in Uganda, maybe we can have a meeting on Zoom so that we discuss on what is missing. Then we can see how we can give the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. That is taken. We are going to have a bilateral before the day goes. Tapero, you have had. Which other sector is remaining? I need to close this. Yes, permission.
I wanted to make a comment on the question that was raised in the presentation on if TOD is a concept or if it is a target to be met. I think it confirms what Charles is saying, that we have to have an intersectoral discussion, because the TOD, the transit-oriented development, is an urban planning design function. So the role of Ministry of Lands in integrating transport planning with land use planning is where that interplay comes into. So we need to have the consultant understand where there are synergies and where we have complementaries between sectors, so that we can have these targets gathered from either sector, not just one sector. And that is one of such an example, because the presenter posed the question back at us. We as urban planning, we provide for TOD, but it is in the integration with transport planning that we can have that the TOD implemented. So the target setting for TOD or its contribution should be made by both sectors, not just by one. So transport may not ably respond to that target question, but with the Ministry of Lands, we'll be able to set our baseline and therefore advise the consultant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other group I've left out before I say something as the Commissioner Department of Climate Change and the Carbon Trade comes to take us in the closing? If no, I want to make an appeal to colleagues. We know you share the data. We know that the consultants have been many approaching you. There have been the World Bank consultants, including, I think, Herbert himself, who have collected a lot of data. But also we need to appreciate that cross-tabulating this data and turning it from these huge documents has not been an easy task. So my humble appeal to you, the sector leads, please extract this information if you can. Where really something needs a call, that one we can organize. We have tried to organize the sectoral consultations. They have been also not easy because of the different running priorities in the different sectors. So I really appeal to you, where you have these baselines, targets across these time frames from your sectoral policies. Yeah, we are going to send you a small table, a column for baseline, a column for 2030, 2035, 2040, 2050. We know the 10-fold growth, it runs up to 2040. We know NDP4 runs up to 2030. But in between there, some of you have sectoral plan, like energy policy targets and others, which run between 2035 to 2050. Actually, the energy transition plan, you project to be net zero by 2065. But the consultant cannot run in these 15 sectoral documents now. This is why we are appealing to you that please collapse this information. You make his work better, is also your work, and we own the document. But Tapera, I'm not protecting you also from doing your work. Please see these documents which were shared. I know you have too much. Use AI also to extract information. I have two questions for you as I hand over my chairmanship. Please clarify on the peaking period. We don't want to be ashamed the next time when we are asked, when was the peaking period for Uganda? Secondly, please categorize the information as you have heard from the groups. Put the targets for 2030 separate. Put the targets for 2035 separate. And anything beyond you have come across to make comparability of efforts easy. Please share quantified information. We told you earlier that the second NDC will be accounted for. And what colleagues are asking for, like quantify your indicators, elaborate your assumptions, is simply what we are doing for NDC accounting. This time, it is going to be a serious issue. Please account for this NDC 3.0. Let's be clear how the mitigation potentials are being estimated. If you require additional talks, we are around. Please don't shy away. That said, you are going to respond to those you can. Those you can't manage, you leave them. You will ask the commissioner to bail you out, how we will respond to many of them. I am giving you 5 minutes, and later the commissioner will come in to take us through the next steps. Capero.
Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you. I'm just hoping that the group leads will share with me written comments as you have them there, because some comments I could only pick up one or two things, but I understood that there was more behind that and more of what is written. So I would really appreciate to have that detail, those detailed documents sent directly to me. Other than that, I'm really excited and happy with the comments that I've heard, the suggestions and the inputs. We'll then take a look at them closely and we'll respond accordingly. I think the one question you asked yourself, Robert, was clarify the peaking period. We can state it explicitly in the document if you want, but if you look at the way the NDC, at least the draft NDC as it is now, what you have in that document, the peaking period will be around about 2028, 2029, yeah, around 2029, 2030 maximum, which means that from then on, we should start to come down. And the estimate is that emissions under NDC3, at least the version that you have there, that the country's emissions should never exceed 147 million tons, which we anticipate will be reached at around 2029 or so. I hope that helps. But we can also, if you want it included explicitly in the NDC, we can explicitly mention that in the NDC, even though I would suggest that it becomes more of a domestic thing rather than international, because if we put it internationally, then we'll be held accountable. If we are delayed, or maybe we peak 2 years later, but we are still on target, then there will be the question of, didn't you say you're going to peak last year or 2 years ago? But if you want, we can put it in the NDC, or otherwise we can put it in the technical report. Remember, there is that technical document that always accompanies the NDC that gives us all the details, how we did the modeling, where the data came from, and all of these things. So I hope I covered many of them, Robert. Yeah, separate targets for 2030 and 2035. A lot of them are comments, and I really appreciate them. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tapelo Letete, for giving us the assurance. That said, I take this singular honor to invite the acting commissioner to take us in the next steps. Over.
Thank you very much. Tapero, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to go anywhere. I will stand here. I think the network is clearer here. I have 5 slides and a conclusion for this meeting. It is just summarizing what we've been doing here, so that by the time we leave here, we know what we have done and what we have not deliberated on. So you just excuse me, I'll be doing that. Please bring the slides. Okay. So in the 2 days, we are able to go through the NDC, the draft which we have, the soft copy and the hard copy. And then we have understood what it takes to have this NDC from the consulting team. And we took time to review the document. And I think the first group work was focused on adaptation. And we got good feedback from the teams, which was in track changes. And we have agreed that we give up to end of Tuesday, because of Business Tuesday, the groups that need to do further consultation on the component of adaptation, that they finish that part and they share back. Okay? So today we have been looking more on the side of mitigation, and we have resized the groups from the 15 to just 4 groups, which is focusing on the mitigation. And therefore, what I'm presenting here, I don't know what is taking time, is just to share with you what we have picked up as we conclude from here. So, Caroline, I want you to look here, Commissioner, that the mitigation groups were divided as follows, but I want us to focus on the red. Under energy, the discussion has been more on transport. Okay? And we are capturing here that energy is missing and want to follow up with MEMPED in terms of the actual input. And we expect this by end of Thursday that we should have captured input from your side. So the discussion went on, but it was missing your component, as you heard from James, who represented the group, isn't it? But also from energy, we invited from power. So as the contact person from energy, remember the discussion we had at Mistil, that we are not taking petroleum things under the GHG reduction, but we can take them under the non-GHG as the starting entry point. So we want you to help us also mobilize the input from POW on what we can do under oil and gas, but on the non-GHG component. Okay? You provided. Okay, I think that is okay, but if you have that information, because we want to capture it, the speed which we have been doing is that we go in those sections and we input. Okay? So it doesn't make harm that if you receive a document from James, you share with Carol, the transport bit is already covered. Now, Carol, go ahead and look at this other part of the energy and also extract what goes under the power part, isn't it? So that now we submit this as what? As an input document. IPPU has not featured today, but I spoke to Commissioner Kiria and we have agreed they are working on their part, okay? Which they'll be also able to share, okay? Now, when it comes to land use, we never had peatland and wetland in the group, isn't it? But the forest has been discussed and agriculture, isn't it? So under that document, we have to follow up with the peatland team and wetlands to see if there is any additional information or if they confirm what is there. So the short-lived climate change portals were missing, but we have gotten a way forward in that direction. So this is what we have done for mitigation, and this is what we're going to make follow-ups. All right? Next. Sapero, I think this is to you if you are still there. This is general observation in the framing of the report. And I think most of these things have been mentioned. We take note that what is the problem? Sapero, are you still there?
100%, 100%.
This I'm going to share with you immediately, but we have taken note of this framing and the structuring of the document. And I think most of the information people here have mentioned it, but allow me to make some bit of reference. On the page 122, the business as usual, you indicated that the two models which are used, the Suspedo and the cruise, you indicated to us that the cruise is close to our national circumstances. But when it came to the modeling figure itself, the graph, below it is Suspedo as opposed to cruise. You need to clarify that because it will be giving different picture. So that is very important for you to take into consideration. Then bullet number 3, we also take note that the GHG emissions to be reflected for 2030. There is that baseline that has been presented in terms of emission projections, okay? But in the middle there, we cannot tell how the emission will be in 2030. The baseline is 2019, then we jumped up to 2035 and up to 2040. So this being a document which have to report every after 5 years, and the next 5 years of reporting is 2030, we imploring you that also include also the business as usual for 2030 in terms of emission. On bullet number 4, this is what most of the colleagues here have been mentioning, that it is not clear in the current version which we have been reviewing what will be the contribution of each sector to the economy-wide target. I think this is, you have to help us to work on this And that actually summarizes the entire bullet number 4. But also the text which you have currently does not explain the sources of emission. You just show in the graph that most of the emission will come from Aforu, isn't it? But in Aforu, which subcategories? Is it from the livestock? Is it from forestry? So that detail actually will help also in redefining more of the intervention to be proposed further. So I think that it needs additional information in that direction to help clarify what will be the contribution of each sector to the overall economic target. And then under that business as usual, in terms of emission projected, then you need to unbundle the sectoral emissions to try to help us under what subcategory most of these emissions are coming from. So it was also noted that there is no mitigation potential for most of these interventions. I think has been mentioned already. And then we need to capture the GHG and the non-GHG, because the GHG is what will help us to report on overall emission reductions, while the non-GHG are very important because they enable us to implement the GHG. So this is really very important. We take note that the forestry sector, where the government of Uganda has been very happy that most of the emissions are coming from there, but again, we have the greatest potential. It is lean in the current document. So we think that maybe it was not given due diligence or it deserves, and we encourage you to go back and look at the forestry sector, but also take into consideration of what the Aforo group will be bringing to on the table. So currently in the document, it sounds to be that it is really very, very minimal under the mitigation, and yet we have so much, including the carbon projects in the country. Most of them are in Aforo, including forestry. So we think that maybe it was misrepresented. It needs to be taken into consideration. Now, on the table of the mitigation, next, the proposal of how this table have to be done, I think it was Aaron. I also sat down and I thought about how best can we project this information. It was very clear under adaptation, but not very clear under mitigation. So now the current proposal is that if you put the measure, we have the scenario, we have the description, we need to put the mitigation potential of each measure that we implement, and then what could be the baseline and the target for 2030, target for 2035, and then the proposed indicator. So if they are presented that way, it will give a clear picture, but also to helping us with our M&E and MRV, whereby if we drop some of this information for the actual NDC, then when you go back to the master document, then you can able to cross-reference of how these things are really getting connected. So that is the proposal for now, to provide the clarity. And this will help a lot even in the further approvals, because approvals will be hinged on such kind of things. Okay. Next, on the adaptation component, which we have done, let me just say that crop we did not do very well because we never had representative, isn't it? So we need to do follow up in that direction. Then environment and ecosystems, it was completely missing. We have to follow up with them, okay? In the room. Manufacturing is still ongoing. I've been talking to them. And then what is missing is mobility, loss and damage. These are missing elements. Education, we spoke yesterday, they are trying to address on their part. So this is also going to be shared on the mailing list just to know which part do we need to improve and those that are still ongoing. So even those that have been reported that you handled, that's why we say we are giving you up to Tuesday next week on adaptation to beef up those informations, and then you'll be able to share the adaptation components, okay? Next, which is the last one, I think. Now, there are also issues on adaptation to deal with the indicators. And here are the 3 scenarios that we are proposing, but also it's going to help people who are in the room here. Number 1, if we have the measures and we expect under the 3 scenario, number 1, number 2, and number 3, that all what we propose is either promoting adaptation, building resilience, and reducing vulnerability, isn't it? Because this is what we're going to have. So what is important, there are instances under scenario number 1 that you have a good measure you have clear baseline, you have clear target and clear indicator. That is okay. And that is the desired scenario, okay? But also, there is scenario number 2, where you have the measure, there is the baseline, and there is no target, and then there is an indicator. So under here, we recommend that this is good to undertake. And then here, we encourage the sectors, for example, to in the first year, where you don't have this would have been baseline scenario number 2, where I don't have the baseline. Sorry, we need to correct this. If the intervention is actually very good to be taken on as an adaptation intervention, isn't it? But we are lacking the baseline as a sector, isn't it? So that means that in the first year of implementation of the NDC, the sector should work towards establishing the baseline. I can correct this one. So that we don't leave out the good intervention in this guise of not having the baseline, it will not going to address our vulnerabilities in our sector. Okay? Provided that you are comfortable with the intervention, no baseline, isn't it? So the baseline should not stop you to propose that intervention, to move with it. But it indicates that in the first year of NDC implementation, you are working towards establishing what? The baseline. This can be corrected. So we encourage that it is good to be undertaken. In the first year, the sector can work towards establishing what? The baseline in this direction. Because you are going to leave out many good interventions in this guise of not having what? Baseline. Yet they can promote resilience, they can boost adaptation and reduce our what? Vulnerability. I always give people an example. The people of the health sector in the previous NDC, they only just committed to do what? To do assessments, isn't it? We are going to do a VAA, they called it a VAA, vulnerability assessment, and they do HNAP. They have done this. That's why when it comes to their section now, it is easy because they are just extracting from the HNAP into the actionable intervention to be done. So the baseline should not hinge us from doing what we are supposed to do. This third scenario is that we have the intervention, there is the baseline, there is target, and there is no indicator. This is also good to be taken on because we can work towards the indicator, isn't it? What can we take? So why I'm emphasizing this is actually has been on scenario number 2. I think this was asked by Aaron, isn't it? Scenario number 2, where you have a good measure, you don't have a baseline, for example, there is no baseline, isn't it? And then you leave out that measure because you don't have a baseline. So when will you have a baseline? What if even in the next round of NDC you don't have baseline? So you keeping the sector vulnerable because you are still looking for the baseline. So the good news is that, or the encouragement is that we take on these interventions, but we try as much as possible in the first year of NDC implementation, we establish what? The baseline. So I think this is what I wanted to provide some bit of clarification as we move towards finalizing what we need to do. So for now, we have one agenda item to do. It's just about the closure. Okay? So in the closure, we have 2 messages. Mine will just come to say that meeting closed, but we are allowing WWF, who has enabled us to host here among Regenerate and what? In this partnership, we are inviting a representative from WWF just in 2 minutes to give us words of encouragement. Then I'll just come back to say that meeting is what? Is closed. Officially, not so. So may I invite my colleague from WWF? Colleagues, clap. Just on behalf of the country director, they have been a partner in this engagement. We give them a chance to speak to us, but also gives us some bit of words of encouragement. Then I'll come back to do the official closing of the meeting. We don't want you to remain the meeting, which is not closed.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And given the fact that we've been here for long and I've been given only 2 minutes, I'll be very brief. I'll use only 1. I want to first of all, commend government for the effort to spearhead the development of this NDC 3, but also to be cognizant of the partners here for the time, but also the technical guidance, as well as the information that is available within your sectors that you've provided to the development of this process. I think we are grateful as WWF. We see this as an opportunity to transform Uganda and the economy, while also building resilience to climate change. And we are glad that from the word go, it was put forward that we should align the development of this NDC 3 to the NDP 4. At WWF, we are implementing a 20-year project, a carbon project that aims to sequester 1.4 million tons of carbon within by 2041. And we've been doing a lot of interventions that especially relate and speak to the actions that we put under the AFOLU sector. And in the event that we will need this kind of information, we are happy, the team at WWF is happy to provide the lessons as well as some of the approaches that they've used to within that project. I'd like to conclude again by saying that we view the NDC as not only a commitment to, as not only a climate commitment, but as a development roadmap that strengthens resilience, promotes green growth, creates jobs, as well as ensures that our natural resources are conserved. And while the well-being of all Ugandans is being considered. Again, I want to thank you for the time, and I am confident that with the effort that we've given, we will have a very good NDC 3. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you very much. Robert, I just want you to know, don't speak. Admin like yesterday on phone or what? You stand up, they hear you. Admin on phone. Robert, you stand up. Admin on phone. On the mobile money. In the name. They can submit those numbers with no dates. Eh? Okay. So, colleagues, timeline for submitting adaptation component is Tuesday. Timeline for submitting mitigation component is Thursday. Okay? It's Thursday. We are going to follow up with you. And after here, the roadmap still apply. We are going to do regional and national validation following the improvement of this very document that the inputs have been solicited for. So with that, thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned until when we shall communicate back to you for the next engagement.